Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready.
Awesome. So today we're tackling chapter 2 of that project management guide we've been talking about. It's all about the project environment, which sounds kind of, I don't know, basic, but it's actually super fascinating.
It really is. It's like, yeah, we all know projects have to exist in, the real world, but this chapter digs deep into how that environment can totally shape your project, for better or worse.
Totally. So we're talking about understanding those hidden forces that can make or break a project, even if you've got the best plan in the world.
That's the key, right? It's not just about managing tasks in isolation. It's about recognizing those external factors that can totally derail your plans if you're not prepared.
Okay, so walk me through this. What are some of the things we need to be aware of? I mean, where do we even start?
Well, the chapter breaks it down into two main categories, things called EEFs and OPAs.
EEFs and OPAs. I feel like I'm learning a secret language here.
Haha. It does sound a bit like that, doesn't it? But it's actually pretty straightforward. EEF stands for Enterprise Environmental Factors.
Enterprise environmental factors, got it. And that means,
Basically, all those external elements that can influence your project, but that you as a project manager don't have direct control over. They can come from both inside and outside the organization.
okay, so like if the economy suddenly tanks or a new competitor pops up out of nowhere.
Exactly. Those are perfect examples of external EFs, things that can totally throw a wrench in your plans, even if your project is perfectly managed internally.
Okay, that makes sense for the external stuff, but you said EFs can come from inside the organization too. I'm a little confused about that.
Think about it this way. Anything that the project team itself can't control is essentially an external factor to them, even if it's happening within the company.
Oh, okay, so like what, the company culture?
Bingo! Company culture is a classic example of an internal EEF.
Because if the culture is super risk averse, it doesn't matter how innovative your project is, you're going to hit some roadblocks.
Exactly. Or imagine a company where getting anything approved takes forever. 15 layers of bureaucracy.
Ugh, been there.
Hmm.
That would definitely impact a project's timeline.
Oh, yeah. And then there's resource availability, right? Like, if your project needs specific technical expertise, but all the people with those skills are already booked on other projects.
Okay, I'm starting to get, so basically anything that feels out of your control as a project manager, even if it's internal, is an EEF.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the context in which your project is operating and acknowledging those factors that you can't just change with the snap of your fingers.
All right, I'm sold on EEFs. They're definitely something to watch out for. But what about those OPAs you mentioned?
Huh. OPAs. These can be your secret weapon. OPA stands for Organizational Process Assets.
And those are?
Think of them as the internal resources, the good stuff that can give your project a serious advantage. They're the tools, processes, knowledge, and basically anything within your organization that can help you do your job better.
So like, if your company has a database of lessons learned from past projects, that would be an OPA.
You got it. Having access to that kind of information can be incredibly valuable. It's like having a cheat sheet for avoiding all the mistakes that have already been made.
Sign me up for that. Learning from others' pain is always a good strategy. So what else falls under the OPA umbrella?
Well, there are things like established processes and procedures. Think of it like your company's project management playbook, like a recipe book.
Okay, so things like having a standardized process for risk management or a template for communication plans.
Exactly. Having those things in place can streamline a lot of your work and ensure consistency across projects.
Makes sense. Saves everyone a lot of time and headaches.
Right. And then there's the organizational knowledge bases. This is where the real gold is. We're talking data repositories, lessons learned reports, historical project information, all that juicy stuff.
So rather than starting from scratch every time, you can actually tap into the collective wisdom of the organization. That's pretty powerful.
It is. And the beauty of it is that these knowledge bases can be incredibly specific. You can search for information on projects that are similar in scope, industry, challenges, whatever.
It's like having a custom-built library of project management expertise at your fingertips. I'm starting to see how understanding these EEFs and OPAs can give me a real advantage.
Absolutely. It's all about recognizing the forces at play, both internal and external, and then figuring out how to leverage them to your benefit.
So now that we've laid the groundwork, let's dig a little deeper into these EEFs. Where should we start?
Well, let's tackle the internal ones first. We've already talked about organizational culture, but there's so much more to unpack there. Think about the company's leadership style, how they approach decision-making, even their appetite for risk.
Yeah, if your company is super hierarchical, With every decision needing a million approvals, that's going to create a very different project environment than one where teams are more empowered to make decisions on the fly.
Exactly. And then you have things like the geographic distribution of your team, right? Are you all working in the same office, or are you scattered across multiple time zones?
Oh, don't even get me started on the time zone juggling. I've been there, and
Yeah.
it definitely adds a layer of complexity to communication and collaboration.
Oh, yeah, huge. And we can't forget about internal politics, can we? Every organization has them, and they can definitely influence how projects are prioritized and resourced.
True. If your project is championed by a senior executive, you're probably going to have a smoother ride than if it's seen as less strategic. It's like you need to do a little internal stakeholder analysis before you even start planning your project.
You got it. Understanding those internal dynamics is crucial.
So we've covered culture, location, politics. What else is lurking in the internal EEF jungle?
Well, resource availability, of course. We touched on it briefly, but it's worth emphasizing that it's not just about having enough people. It's about having the right people with the right skills at the right time. And it's also about having access to the necessary equipment, technology, and infrastructure.
Oh, I've been on projects where we had to wait weeks for a critical piece of software. Talk about a momentum killer.
Ugh, I know that feeling. So yeah, internal EEFs are all about understanding the nuances of your organization and anticipating how those internal dynamics might impact your project.
It's like doing a little reconnaissance mission before you launch your project plan. Scout out the terrain and anticipate potential obstacles.
Exactly. Now, are you ready to venture into the world outside our organizational walls?
Hit me with it. I'm ready to face those external EEFs.
All right. These can be a bit more unpredictable, but we can at least try to anticipate their impact and adapt.
Okay, so give me some examples. What kind of external EEFs should we be prepared for?
Well, marketplace conditions are a big one. Think about the competitive landscape, economic climate, and all the crazy technology advancements happening all the time.
Right, like what if you're developing a new product and a competitor suddenly releases something similar, but with, cooler features?
Ouch. Yeah, that would be a tough one to swallow. But it happens. Those market shifts can make your project irrelevant overnight or create a huge surge in demand.
Sounds like you need to be pretty agile to thrive in that kind of environment.
Agility is key. And then you have those legal and regulatory hurdles. These can really vary depending on your industry and location. And, not complying can have serious consequences.
Especially for projects with global components, right? Juggling different laws and regulations in multiple countries.
Exactly. It can feel like navigating a minefield of red tape sometimes.
And then there are those broader social and cultural influences that can have a huge impact. Things like public opinion, ethics, the political climate. I can see how that would add a whole other layer of complexity to project planning. You need to be aware of what's happening in the world around you, not just within your own organization.
It's all connected, right? And failing to consider those external factors can lead to some pretty big surprises down the road.
It's like you're building a house, but the ground keeps shifting beneath you.
That's a perfect analogy. So yeah, we've got market forces, legal and regulatory hurdles, social and cultural trends, all those external EFs to keep in mind.
Wow, it's amazing how all these factors can come into play, things you might not even think about when your head's down in your project plan. It really highlights how project management is about so much more than just managing tasks. It's about managing this whole ecosystem of influences.
Absolutely. And that's why those OPAs, those internal assets, are so important.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling the love for those OPAs right about now.
Hmm.
So let's shift gears and talk about those for a bit. What kind of internal treasures can we dig up to help us navigate these challenges?
So before we got sidetracked by all those crazy external factors, we were talking about how OPAs can be a real lifesaver for project managers.
Oh yeah, those OPAs, they were starting to sound pretty appealing,
Yeah.
especially after that rundown of all those EEFs we have to deal with.
Right. It's like, okay, we've got all these things we can't control, so what can we do to give ourselves an edge?
Exactly. So let's dig into those OPAs. Where do we even start?
Well, one of the most common types of OPAs is a configuration management repository,
Oh, what? Configuration management.
Yeah, it sounds a bit technical, but it's basically a super detailed history of everything that's been used on past projects, documents, software, hardware, standards, procedures, all meticulously tracked and organized.
So, like if I'm working on a project that's similar to one that's been done before, I could potentially access all the documentation and plans from that previous project.
Exactly. It can save you a ton of time and effort, and it helps ensure consistency. You can see how things evolved over time, avoid repeating past mistakes, make sure everyone's working from the same playbook. Especially in large organizations, these repositories are essential for keeping everyone on the same page.
Yeah, I've definitely been in situations where different teams were using different versions of a document, and it was a total nightmare.
Oh, tell me about it. Version control headaches are a real thing. A configuration management repository can help prevent that.
Okay, so configuration management is definitely on my list of things to explore. What other kinds of knowledge bases are out there?
Another crucial one is a financial data repository. This is where all the financial details from past projects are stored. Budgets, actual costs, labor hours, any overruns or savings, all that juicy stuff.
So you can basically do a financial postmortem on past projects.
Exactly. You can see where the money went, identify any red flags, and use that information to create more accurate budgets for your own projects. And when stakeholders start grilling you about the budget, you've got the data to back you up.
I can already see how that would be super helpful, especially when you're trying to justify budget requests. Data is definitely power in those situations.
Absolutely. It takes the guesswork out of budgeting and helps you make more informed decisions.
I'm sensing a theme here. All these OPAs are about learning from the past, right? Using the experience and knowledge that's already been accumulated to make better decisions in the present.
You got it. And arguably the most valuable knowledge base of all is the historical information and lessons learned repository.
That's where all the good stuff is, right? The real stories, the insights, those aha moments that can help you avoid repeating history.
Exactly. It's like having a direct line to all the project managers who have walked these halls before you. You can access lessons learned reports, project postmortems, risk assessments, stakeholder feedback, all those nuggets of wisdom.
So instead of feeling like I'm constantly reinventing the wheel, I can actually tap into this wealth of experience and avoid making the same mistakes others have made.
Exactly. But it's not about blindly following what's been done before, right? You still need to use your judgment.
Yeah, you have to adapt the knowledge to your specific situation. Each project is unique.
Exactly. But there are always valuable lessons to be learned.
Okay, so we've covered configuration management, financial data, and historical information. That's already a pretty impressive toolkit. What else is out there?
Well, no project is perfect, right? There are always going to be issues and defects that pop up along the way.
Right, those unexpected surprises that throw a wrench in your plans.
Exactly. And that's where an issue and defect management data repository comes in handy. It's basically a bug tracking system for project management.
Interesting. So every time a problem comes up, it gets logged into the system with all the relevant details.
Yeah, the severity, who's responsible for fixing it, the whole 9 yards. And then you can track its status and make sure it's being addressed. But the real power comes from analyzing the data, seeing which types of issues are recurring, maybe even predicting potential problems before they happen.
It's like turning those frustrating moments into learning opportunities.
Exactly. It's about using data to be proactive, to get ahead of those problems.
This is starting to sound like we're building a project management supercomputer. All this data to help us make better decisions and avoid those costly mistakes.
Data is definitely a superpower in project management.
So we've got issue and defect management. What else?
Well, you can't forget about metrics and performance indicators. Every project needs to be tracking its progress, right? So this knowledge base houses all that juicy data, how efficiently your team's working, how effectively you're using resources, whether your processes are helping or hindering your progress.
So it's not just about tracking whether you're on schedule and within budget. It's about understanding why, right? What's driving those numbers?
You got it. It's about measuring what matters and using that data to continuously improve.
Okay, I'm starting to get a real appreciation for the power of data in project management. It's not just about gut feeling and intuition anymore. It's about having the evidence to back up your decisions.
Absolutely. And you know what else is a goldmine of information?
Lay it on me.
Project files from previous projects. Think about it, that those files contain all sorts of valuable information.
Scope statements, cost estimates, risk registers, communication plans, all those documents that capture the essence of a project.
Exactly. By studying those files, you can get a sense of how similar projects were approached, what challenges they faced, how they were overcome.
It's like having a backstage pass to the inner workings of successful projects.
It's amazing what you can learn just by studying how others have done it before you.
So rather than starting from scratch every time, we can actually build on the knowledge that's already been accumulated.
Yeah.
I like it.
And these are just a few examples, right? There are many other types of OPAs out there, and the ones that are most valuable will depend on your industry, organization, and the specific project you're working on.
It's like we've uncovered this hidden library of project management wisdom just waiting to be explored.
It really is. But it's not enough to just know that these resources exist. You need to know how to access them, how to search for the information you need, and how to apply that knowledge to your own projects.
So what are some practical tips for getting the most out of these OPAs?
Well, first of all, you need to know where to find them. Talk to your colleagues, your manager, your PMO, anyone who might be able to point you in the right direction. A lot of companies have intranets or knowledge management platforms where these resources are housed. Then, familiarize yourself with the different types of knowledge bases available and how they're organized.
So it's like doing a little reconnaissance mission to map out the knowledge landscape within your organization.
Exactly. And when you're searching for information, be as specific as possible. Don't just search for project management. Think about the specific challenges you're facing, the type of project you're working on, the industry you're in. The more specific your search, the more relevant your results will be.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So let's say I found some information that looks promising. How do I know if it's actually applicable to my situation?
That's where your critical thinking skills come in. Read the information carefully, think about the context in which it was created, and really consider how it might apply to your project. And don't be afraid to reach out to the people who created the information, ask them some questions, get their advice.
So it's not just about passively absorbing information. It's about engaging with it, questioning it, and adapting it to fit your needs.
Exactly. It's about having a conversation with the past, learning from their experience, and figuring out how to make it work for you in the present. And the more you use these OPAs, the more comfortable you'll become with finding what you need and really extracting those nuggets of wisdom.
Okay, I'm definitely starting to see how valuable these OPAs can be. It's like having this secret weapon that most people don't even know exists.
It really is. But we've been talking a lot about data and documents, haven't we?
Yeah, which is super important. Data-driven decision-making is definitely the way to go. But I guess there's more to it than that, right?
Right. We can't forget about the human element. All those walking, talking knowledge bases we have in our organizations.
Oh, our colleagues,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they've got years of experience. They've seen it all. They've made the mistakes, learned the lessons. That's got to be valuable, right?
It's incredibly valuable. But sometimes we forget about it because it's not as neatly packaged as a database or a document.
Right. So how do we tap into that?
Well, it all starts with relationships. Building those connections with your colleagues, fostering a culture of open communication.
So, don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to people who have expertise in areas where you need guidance.
Exactly. Pick their brains, learn from their experiences. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from those informal conversations.
Yeah, those water cooler moments where you're just chatting with a colleague and suddenly they drop some knowledge bomb that totally changes your perspective.
Exactly. Those moments are gold.
But let's be real, not everyone is super comfortable sharing their knowledge. I mean, I've worked in places where people guard their information like it's a precious commodity.
Oh, I've been there too. It's like they're afraid that if they share what they know, they'll somehow become less valuable.
Right. So how do you break down those barriers and create a culture where knowledge sharing is actually encouraged and rewarded?
Well, I think it starts with leadership. Leaders need to set the tone, make it clear that sharing knowledge is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength.
Lead by example, right?
Exactly. And when leaders walk the talk, it creates a ripple effect throughout the organization. People see that it's safe to share, that it's valued, and that it can actually benefit their careers.
So it's about creating a culture where knowledge is seen as a shared asset, something that benefits everyone.
Absolutely. And when you have that kind of culture, projects run more smoothly, teams are more effective, and the whole organization becomes more innovative and competitive.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've explored the project environment from every angle, from those external forces that can feel overwhelming to those internal resources that can help us thrive.
And we've learned that knowledge is the key to navigating this complex landscape.
Knowledge is power. But it's not just about having access to information. It's about knowing how to use it effectively.
Exactly. And the good news is that we all have access to more knowledge than ever before. It's all around us, just waiting to be unlocked.
So as we wrap up this episode, I'd love to leave our listeners with a challenge. Think about the knowledge that exists within your own organization. What steps can you take to unlock that knowledge, share it with others, and create a culture of continuous learning?
That's a great challenge. Embrace the power of knowledge, folks, and watch your projects and your careers soar to new heights.
Until next time, keep learning, keep sharing, and keep diving deep.